Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first video of the Cave of Treasures series. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to share this information to the public. Um, it's so deep and so mind-blowing. This is the first of 6 total videos that I'll be doing for this series. And as requested from my viewers, all of my videos will provide you with both an audio narration for those who prefer to listen to it instead, and a visual read along as well, and a link to the PDF in the video description for those who prefer to read the material themselves. That way each video suits the needs of each viewer, okay? And I would also like to add that I guess I'm a pretty good reader with a clear tone, if I do say so myself, and there are some Hebrew words, so bear with me as I try and pronounce certain terms to the best of my ability, okay? But what I can promise you is a smooth and fluid narration. So in this particular video, I'll be covering the first 1,000 years of time. And just to note, this particular book doesn't go too in depth with the creation before Genesis, as that is covered extremely in depth in another book. And that's actually a surprise that I'll be covering in a later video. And you know, like I said, it's so deep and it's so complex that I have to first get your minds ready for the things that you're about to learn, because it can get very confusing if I were to just lay it all out at once, okay? But for now, you'll soon find out what went on during the creation of our planet and the different realms. And once again, that's just a brief summary. Um, you'll also discover the creation of Adam, the revolt of Satan, aka the battle in heaven, the making of Eve, the symbolism of Eden, Satan's attack on Adam and Eve, Adam's stay in paradise, Adam's expulsion from paradise, the birth of Seth, the posterity of Seth, the death of Adam, the burial of Adam, the rule of Seth, and the rise of the sons of Seth after his death. And these contents will complete the first book of the Cave of Treasures. So basically, we're going to go all the way back in time to the very beginning, and then we'll work our way up through the timeline together. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and if you liked it, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Here we go. The first 1,000 years, and this is going to start from Adam all the way up to Jared. The creation, the first day. In the beginning, on the first day, which was the holy first day of the week, the chief and firstborn of all the days, God created the heavens and the earth, and the waters and the air, and the fire and the host which are invisible, that is to say, the angels, archangels, thrones, lords, principalities, powers, cherubim, and seraphim, and all the ranks and companies of spiritual beings, and the light, and the night, and the daytime, and the gentle winds and the strong winds, or also known as the storms. All these were created on the first day, and on the first day of the week, the Spirit of holiness, one of the persons of the Trinity, as we know, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, hovered over the waters, and through the hovering thereof over the face of the waters were blessed, so that they might become producers of offspring. And they became hot, and the whole nature of the waters glowed with heat, and the leaven of creation was united to them. As the mother bird maketh warm her young by the embrace of her closely covering wings, and the young birds acquire form through the warmth of the heat which they derive from her, so through the operation of the Spirit of holiness, the Spirit, the Paraclete, the leaven of the breath of life was united to the waters when he hovered over them. The creation of the heavens and the earth has been planned from everlasting in the immutable mind of God. He created 7 substances or natures in silence without voice: heaven, earth, water, air, fire, the angels, and darkness. The earth was plunged in the midst of the waters. Above the waters was air, and above the air was fire. Water is cold and moist, air is hot and moist, fire is hot and dry, but it had no luminosity until the 4th day, when the luminaries were created. The angels are divided into 9 classes and 3 orders. The upper order contains cherubim, seraphim, and thrones, and these are bearers of God's throne. The middle order contains lords, powers, and rulers. The lower order contains principalities, archangels, and angels. The cherubim are an intellectual motion, the seraphim are a fiery motion, The thrones are a fixed motion. The lords are a motion which governs the motions beneath it and controls the devils. The powers are a motion which gives effects to God's will. The rulers are in motion, which rules spiritual measures and the sun, moon, and stars. The principalities are a motion which rules the elements. The archangels are a swift operative motion which governs every living creature except man. And the angels are a motion which has spiritual knowledge of everything which is in heaven or on the earth. The guardian angel of every man belongs to this last class. The number of each class of angel is equal to the number of all mankind from Adam to the resurrection. The heaven in which the angels live is above the waters, which are above the firmament, and they minister to their God there, being invisible to bodily eyes. The angels are not self-existent beings, they were created. On the other hand, darkness is a self-existent nature or substance. The creation, the second day. And on the second day, God made the lower heaven and called it recti, that is to say, what is soled and fixed, or firmament. This he did that he might make known that the lower heaven doth not possess the nature of the heaven which is above it, and that is different in appearance from that heaven which is above it, for the heaven above it is of fire, and that heaven is Nura, which means light, and this lower heaven is Darpishan. And because it hath the dense nature of water, it hath been called Reki. And on the second day, God made a separation between the waters and the waters, that is to say, between the waters which were above Reki and the waters which were below. And the accent of these waters which were above heaven took place on the second day, and they were like unto a dense black cloud of thick darkness. Thus were they raised up there. And they mounted up, and behold, they stand above the Reki in the air, and they do not spread, and they make no motion to any side. The creation, the third day. And on the third day God commanded the waters that were below the firmament to be gathered together in one place, and the dry land to appear. And when the covering of water had been rolled up from the face of the earth showed itself to be in an unsettled and unstable state, that is to say, it was of damp or moist and yielding in nature. And the waters were gathered together into the seas that were under the earth and within it and upon it. And God made in the earth from below corridors and shafts and channels for the passage of the waters, and the winds which came from within the earth ascend by means of these corridors and channels, and also the heat and the cold for the service of the earth. Now, as for the earth, the lower part of it like unto a thick sponge, for it resteth on the waters. And on the third day God commanded the earth, and it brought forth herbs and vegetables, and it conceived in its interior trees, and seeds, and plants, and roots. The creation, the fourth day. And on the fourth day God made the sun and the moon and the stars. And as soon as the heat of the sun was diffused over the surface of the earth became hard and rigid and lost its flaccidity, because the humidity and the dampness caused by the waters were taken away from it. The Creator made the sphere of the sun of fire and filled it with light, and God gave unto the sphere of the moon and the star bodies of water and air, and filled them with light. And when the dust of the earth became hot, it brought forth all the trees and plants and seeds and roots which had been conceived inside of it on the third day. The creation, the fifth day. And on the fifth day God commanded the waters, and they brought forth all kinds of fish of divers appearances, and creatures which move about, and twist themselves, and wriggle in the waters, and serpents, and leviathan, and beasts of terrible aspects, and feathered fowl of the air and of the waters. And on this same day God made from the earth all the cattle and wild beasts, and all the reptiles which creep upon the earth. the creation, the sixth day. And on the sixth day, which is the eve of the Sabbath, God formed man out of the dust, and Eve from his rib. And on the seventh day, God rested from his labors and called it Sabbath. The creation of Adam. Now the formation of Adam took place in the wise. On the sixth day, which is the eve of the Sabbath, at the first hour of the day, when quietness was reigning over all the ranks of the angels and the hosts of the heaven, God said, Come ye, let us make man in our image, and according to our likeness. Now by this word us, he maketh known concerning the glorious persons of the Trinity. And when the angel heard this utterance, they fell into a state of fear and trembling, and they said to one another, A mighty miracle will be made manifest to us this day, and that is to say, the likeness of God our Maker. And they saw the right hand of God opened out flat and stretched out over the whole world, and all creatures were collected in the palm of his right hand. And they saw that he took from the whole mass of the earth one grain of dust, and from the whole nature of water one drop of water, and from all the air which is above one puff of wind, and from the whole nature of fire a little of its heat and warmth. And the angel saw that when these four feeble or inert materials were placed in the palm of his right hand, that is to say, cold and heat and dryness and moisture, God formed Adam. Now, for what reason did God make Adam out of these four materials, unless it were to show that everything which is in the world should be in subordination to him through them? He took a grain from the earth in order that everything in nature which is formed of earth should be subject unto him, and a drop of water in order that everything which is in the seas and rivers should be his, and a puff of air so that all kinds of creatures which fly in the air might be given unto him, and the heat of fire so that all the beings that are fiery in nature and the celestial hosts might be his helpers. God formed Adam with his holy hands in his own image and likeness, and when the angels saw Adam's glorious appearance, they were greatly moved by the beauty thereof. For they saw the image of his face burning with glorious splendor like the orb of the sun. And the light of his eyes was like the light of the sun, and the image of his body was like unto the sparkling of crystal. And when he rose at full length and stood upright in the center of the earth, he planted his 2 feet on that spot whereon was set up the cross of our Redeemer, for Adam was created in Jerusalem. There he was arrayed in the apparel of sovereignty, and there was the crown of glory set upon his head. There was he made king and priest and prophet. There did God make him to sit upon his honorable throne, and there did God give him dominion over all creatures and things. And all the wild beasts and all the cattle and the feathered fowl were gathered together, and they passed before Adam, and he assigned names to them. And they bowed their heads before him, and everything in nature worshipped him, and submitted themselves unto him. And the angels in the host of heaven heard the voice of God saying unto Adam, Adam, behold, I have made thee king and priest and prophet and lord and head and governor of everything which hath made and created, and they shall be in subjection unto thee, and they shall be thine, and I have given unto thee power over everything which I have created. And when the angels heard this speech, they bowed the knee and worshiped him. The revolt of Satan and the battle in heaven. And when the prince of the lower order of angels saw that what great majesty had been given unto Adam, he was jealous of him from that day, and he did not wish to worship him. And he said unto his host, Ye shall not worship him, and ye shall not praise him with the angels. It is meet that ye should worship me, because I am fire and spirit, and not that I should worship a thing of dust, which hath thou been fashioned of fine dust. And the rebel, meditating these things, would not render obedience to God, and of his own free will he asserted his independence and separated himself from God. But he was swept away out of heaven and fell. And the fall of himself and of all his company from heaven took place on the sixth day, at the second hour of the day. And the apparel of their glorious state was stripped off them, and his name was called Satana, because he turned aside from the right way, and Sheda, because he was cast out, and Dawa, because he lost the apparel of his glory. And behold, from that time until the present day, he and all his hosts have been stripped of their apparel, and they go naked and have horrible faces. And when Satan was cast out from heaven, Adam was raised up so that he might ascend to paradise in a chariot of fire. And the angels went before him, singing praises, and the seraphim ascribed holiness unto him, and the cherubim ascribed blessing. And amid cries of joy and praises, Adam went into paradise. And as soon as Adam entered paradise, he was commanded not to eat of a certain tree. His entrance into heaven took place at the 3rd hour of the eve of Sabbath, otherwise known as Friday morning. The making of Eve. And God cast a sleep upon Adam, and he slept. And God took a rib from the loins on the right side of Adam, and he made Kawa, which means Eve, from it. And when Adam woke up and saw Eve, he rejoiced in her greatly. And Adam and Eve were in paradise and clothed with glory and shining with praise for 3 hours. Now this paradise was situated on a high range of hills, and it was 30 spans according to the measurement of the Spirit, higher than all the high mountains, and it surrounded the whole earth. The symbolism of Eden. Now Eden is the holy church, and the church is the compassion of God, which he was about to extend to the children of men. For God, according to his foreknowledge, knew what Satan had devised against Adam, and therefore he set Adam beforehand in the bosom of his compassion, even as the blessed David singeth concerning him in the psalm, saying, Lord, thou hast been abiding place for us throughout all generations, that is to say, that hast made us to have our abiding place in thy compassion. And when entreating God on behalf of the redemption of the children of men, David said, Remember thy church which thou didst acquire in olden time. That is to say, remember thy compassion which thou art about to spread over our feeble race. Eden is the holy church, and the paradise which was in it is the land of rest, and the inheritance of life, which God hath prepared for all the holy children of men. And because Adam was priest and king and prophet, God brought him into paradise that he might minister in Eden, the holy church, even as the blessed man Moses testifieth concerning him, saying, quote, that he might serve God by means of priestly ministration with praise, and that he might keep that commandment which had been entrusted by him by the compassion of God. And God made Adam and Eve to dwell in paradise, true in this word, and it is proclaimeth the truth, that tree of life, which was in the midst of the paradise, prefigured the redeeming cross, which is the veritable tree of life, and that it was that was fixed in the middle of the earth. Satan's attack on Adam and Eve. And when Satan saw that Adam and Eve were happy and joyful in paradise, that rebel was smitten sorely with jealousy, and he became filled with wrath. And he went and took up his abode in the serpent, and he raised him up, and made him to fly through the air to the skirts of Mount Eden, whereon was paradise. Now, why did Satan enter the body of the serpent and hide himself therein? Because he knew that his appearance was foul, and that if Eve saw his form, she would betake herself to flight straightway before him. Now, the man who wished to teach the Greek language to a bird, now the bird that can learn the speech of men, is called babaga, which means parrot. First bringeth a large mirror and placeth between himself and the bird. He then beginneth to talk to the bird, and immediately the parrot heareth the voice of the man. It turneth round, and when it seeth its own form reflected in the mirror, it becometh pleased straightway, because it imagineth that a fellow parrot is talking to it. Then it inclineth its ear with pleasure, and listeneth to the words of the man who is talking to it, and it becometh eager to learn and to speak Greek. In this manner with the objective of making Eve believe that it was the serpent that spoke to her, did Satan enter in and dwell in the serpent, and he watched for the opportunity. And when he saw Eve by herself, he called by her name. And when she turned around towards him, she saw her own form reflected in him, and she talked to him, and Satan led her astray with his lying words, because the nature of woman is soft, or quote unquote yielding. And when Eve had heard from his concerning that tree, straightway she ran quickly to it, and she plucked the fruit of disobedience from the tree of transgression of the command, and she ate. Then immediately she found herself stripped naked, and she saw the hatefulness of her shame, and she ran away naked, and hid herself in another tree, and covered her nakedness with the leaves thereof. And she cried out to Adam, and he came to her, and she handed to him some of the fruit of which she had eaten, and he also did eat thereof. And when he had eaten, he also became naked, and he and Eve made girdles for their loins of the leaves of the fig trees, and they were arrayed in these girdles of ignominy for 3 hours. At midday they received their sentence of doom, and God made for them tunics of skin, which was stripped from the trees, that is to say, of the bark of the trees, because the trees that were in paradise had soft barks, and they were softer than the byssus and silk, wherefrom the garments worn by kings were made. And God dressed them in this soft skin, which was thus spread over a body of infirmities. Adam's stay in paradise. At the third hour of the day Adam and Eve ascended into paradise, and for 3 hours they enjoyed the good things thereof. For 3 hours they were in shame and disgrace. And at the ninth hour their expulsion from paradise took place. And as they were going forth sorrowfully, God spake unto Adam, and heartened him, and said unto him, Be not sorrowful, O Adam, for I will restore unto thee thine inheritance. Behold, see how greatly I have loved thee, for though I have cursed the earth for thy sake, yet I have withdrawn thee from the operation of the curse. As for the serpent, I have fettered his legs in his belly, and I have given him the dust of the earth for food, and Eve have I bound under her the yoke of servitude. Inasmuch as thou hast transgressed my commandments, get thee forth, but be not sad. After the fulfillment of the times which I have allotted that you shall be in the exile outside paradise, in the land which is under the curse, behold, I will send my son. And he shall go down from heaven for thy redemption, and he shall sojourn in a virgin, and shall put on a body of flesh, and through him redemption and a return shall be effected for thee. But command thy sons, and order them to embalm thy body after thy death with myrrh, cassia, and scacti. And they shall place thee in this cave, wherein I am making you to dwell this day, until the time when your expulsion shall take place from the regions of paradise to that earth, of paradise to that earth which is outside it. And whosoever shall be left in those days shall take thy body with him, and shall deposit it on the spot which I shall show him in the center of the earth. For in that place shall redemption be effected for thee and for all thy children. And God revealed unto Adam everything which the Son would suffer on behalf of him. Adam's expulsion from paradise. And when Adam and Eve had gone forth from paradise, the door of paradise was shut, and a cherubim bearing a two-edged sword stood by it. And Adam and Eve went down in of spirit over the mountains of paradise, and they found a cave in the top of the mountain, and they entered and hid themselves therein. Now Adam and Eve were virgins, and Adam wished to know Eve his wife. And Adam took from the skirts of the mountain of paradise gold and myrrh and frankincense, and he placed them in the cave. And he blessed the cave and consecrated it, that it might be the house of prayer for himself and his sons. And he called the cave Meragath Gaze, aka the cave of treasures. So Adam and Eve went down from the holy mountain of Eden to the slopes which were below it, and there Adam knew Eve his wife. And Eve conceived and brought forth Cain and Labuda, his sister, with him. And Eve conceived again, and she brought forth Habil, which is known as Abel, and Kelamath, his sister, with him. And when the children grew up, Adam said unto Eve, Let Cain take his wife Kelamath, who was brought forth with Abel, and let Abel take to wife Labuda, who was brought forth with Cain. And Cain said unto Eve his mother, I will take to wife my sister Labuda, and let Abel take to wife his twin sister Kelamath. Now Labuda was beautiful. When Adam heard these words, which were exceedingly displeasing unto him, he said, It will be a transgression of the commandment for thee to take to wife thy sister, who was born with thee. Nevertheless, take ye to yourselves fruits of trees and the young of sheep, and get ye up to the top of this holy mountain. Then go ye into the cave of treasures, and offer ye up your offerings, and make your prayers, and then ye shall consort with your wives. And it came to pass that when Adam, the first priest, and Cain and Abel, his sons, were going up to the top of the mountain, Satan entered into Cain and persuaded him to kill Abel, his brother, because Labuda, and because his offering was rejected and was not accepted before God, whilst the offering of Abel was accepted. Cain's jealousy of his brother Abel was increased. And when they came down to the plain, Cain rose up against his brother Abel, and he killed him with a blow from a stone of flint. Then straightway Cain received the doom of death instead of curses, and he became a fugitive and a wanderer all the days of his life. And God drove him forth into exile in a certain part of the forest of Nod, and Cain took to wife his sister and made the place of his abode there. The birth of Seth. And Adam and Eve mourned for Abel 100 years. And then Adam knew his wife again, and she brought forth Seth, the beautiful, a man mighty and perfect like unto Adam. And he became the father of the mighty men who lived before the flood. The posterity of Seth. And to Seth was born Enos, and Enos begot Canaan, and Canaan begot Mahalaleel, and these are the patriarchs who were born in the days of Adam. The death of Adam. And when Adam had lived 930 years, that is to say, until the 135th year of Mahalaleel, the day of his death drew nigh and came. And Seth, his sons, and Enos, and Canaan, and Mahalaleel gathered themselves together and came to him. And they were blessed by him, and he prayed over them. And he commanded his son Seth, and said unto him, Observe, my son Seth, that which I command thee this day, and do thou on the day of thy death give my command to Enos, and repeat it to him, and let him repeat it to Canaan, and Canaan shall repeat it to Mahalaleel. And let them and let this my command be handed unto all your generations, and when I die, embalm me with myrrh and cassia and stacte, and deposit my body in the cave of treasures. And whosoever shall be left of your generations in that day, when you're going forth from this country which is round about the paradise, shall take place, shall carry my body with him, and shall take it and deposit it in the center of the earth. For in that place shall redemption be effected for me and for all my children. And be thou, O my son Seth, governor of the sons of thy people, and thou shalt rule them purely and holily and in the fear of God. And keep ye your offspring separate from the offspring of Cain, the murderer. And when the report, quote, Adam is dying, was known generally, all his offspring gathered together and came to him, that is to say, Seth, his sons, and Enos, and Canaan, and Mahalaleel, And they and their wives and their sons and their daughters, and Adam blessed them. And the departure of Adam from this world took place in the 930th year, according to the reckoning from the beginning, on the 14th day of the moon, on the 6th day of the month of Nisan, which is April, at the 9th hour, on the day of the eve of the Sabbath, which is Friday, at the same hour in which the Son of Man delivered up his soul to his Father on the cross, did our father Adam deliver up his soul to him that fashioned him, and he departed from this world. The burial of Adam. And when Adam was dead, his son Seth embalmed him, according as Adam had commanded him, with myrrh and cassia and stocti. Now Adam's dead body was the first body buried in the earth, and grief for him was exceedingly sore. And Seth and his sons mourned for his death 140 days. And they took Adam's body up to the top of the mountain, and buried it in the cave of treasures. And after the families and peoples of the children of Seth had buried Adam, they separated themselves from the children of Cain, the murderer. And Seth took Enos, his firstborn, and Canaan, and Malach and their wives and children, and led them up into the glorious mountain where Adam was buried. And Cain and all his descendants remained below on the plain where Cain slew Abel. The rule of Seth. And Seth became the governor of the children of his people, and he ruled them in purity and holiness. And because of their purity, they received the name, which is the best of all names, and were called, quote, the sons of God, they and their wives and their sons. Thus they lived in that mountain in all purity and holiness and in the fear of God. And they went up on the skirts of the mountain of paradise, and they became praisers and glorifiers of God in the place of that host of devils who fell from heaven. There they dwelt in peace and happiness. There was nothing about which they needed to feel anxiety. They had nothing to worry or trouble them. And they had nothing to do except to praise and glorify God with the angels, for they heard continually the voices of the angels who were singing praises in paradise, which was situated at no great height above them. In fact, only about 30 spans, according to the measure of the Spirit. They suffered neither toil nor fatigue. They had neither seed time nor harvest. But they fed themselves with the delectable fruits of glorious trees of all kinds, and they enjoyed the sweet scent and perfume of the breezes which were wafted forth to them from paradise. Thus lived those holy men, who are indeed holy, and their wives were pure, and their sons were virtuous, and their daughters were chaste and undefiled. In them there was no rebellious thought, no envy, no anger, no enmity. In their wives and daughters there was no impure longing, and neither lasciviousness, nor cursing, nor lying was heard among them. The only oath which they used in swearing was, quote, by the blood of Abel. And they and their wives and their children used to rise up early in the morning and go up to the top of that holy mountain and worship there before God. And they were blessed by the body of Adam their father. And they lifted up their eyes to paradise and praised God, and thus they did all the days of their life. And when Seth had lived 930 years, he became sick unto death. And Enos his son, and Canaan, and Mahalalel, and Jared, and Enoch, and their wives and their sons gathered together and came unto him, and they were blessed by him. And he prayed over them, and commanded them, and made them to take an oath, and said unto them, quote, I will make you to take an oath, and to swear by the holy blood of Abel, that none of you will go down from his holy mountain to the children of Cain, the murderer. For ye know well the enmity which hath existed between us and Cain from the day whereon he slew Abel. And Seth blessed Enos his son, and gave him commands concerning the body of Adam, and he made him ruler over the children of his people. And Seth ruled them in purity and in holiness, and he ministered diligently before the body of Adam. And Seth died when he was 912 years old, on the 27th day of the blessed month of Ab, also known as August, on the 2nd day of the week, Monday, at the 3rd hour, in the 20th year of the life of Enoch. And Enos, Seth's firstborn son, embalmed his body and buried him in the cave of treasures with his father Adam, and they made a mourning for him 40 days. The rule of Enos. And Enos rose up to minister before God in the cave of treasures, and he became the governor of the children of his people, and he kept all the commandments which his father Seth had commanded him, and he urged them to be constant in prayer. And in the days of Enos, in his 820th year, Lamech, the blind man, killed Cain, the murderer, in the forest of Nod. Now this killing took place in the following manner. As Lamech was leaning on the youth, his son Tubal-Cain, and the youth was setting straight his father's arm in the direction in which he saw the quarry, he heard the sound of Cain moving about, backwards and forwards in the forest. Now Cain was unable to stand still in one place and to hold his peace. And Lamech, thinking that it was a wild beast that was making a movement in the forest, raised his arm, and having made ready, drew his bow and shot an arrow towards that spot, and the arrow smote Cain right in between the eyes, and he fell down and died. And Lamech, thinking that he had shot game, spake to the youth, saying, quote, Make haste, and let us see what game we have shot. Quote, And when they went to the spot, and the boy on whom Lamech leaned had looked, he said unto him, quote, O my Lord, thou hast killed Cain. And Lamech moved his hands to smite them together, and as he did, so he smote the youth and killed him also. And when Enos had lived 905 years and was sick unto death, all the patriarchs gathered themselves together and came unto him. Canaan, his firstborn son, and Mahalaleel, and Jared, and Enoch, and Methuselah, they and their wives and their sons, and they were blessed by him. And he prayed over them and commanded them, and spake unto them, saying, quote, I will make you to swear by the holy blood of Abel, that none of you shall go down from the mountain to the plain, nor into the encampment of the children of Cain, the murderer, and ye shall not mingle yourselves among them. Take ye good heed unto this manner, for ye well know what enmity hath existed between us and them from the day whereon Cain slew Abel. And he blessed Canaan his son, and commanded him concerning the body of Adam, that he should minister before it all the days of his life, and that he should rule over the children of his people in purity and holiness. And Enos died at the age of 950 years on the 3rd day of the month of the first Teshrin, also known as October, on the day of the Sabbath, in the 53rd year of the life of Methuselah. And Canaan his firstborn embalmed him and buried him in the cave of treasures with Adam and Seth his father, and they made a mourning for him 40 days. The rule of Canaan. And Canaan stood up before God to minister in the cave of treasures. He was an honorable and pure man, and he governed the children of his people in the complete fear of God. And he fulfilled all the commandments of Enos his father. And when Canaan had lived 920 years and was sick unto death, all the patriarchs gathered together and came unto him. Mahalaleel his son, and Jared, and Enoch, and Methuselah, and Lamech, they and their wives and their children, and were blessed by him. And he prayed over them and commanded them, saying, quote, I will make you swear by the holy blood of Abel, that none of you shall go down from this holy mountain into the camp of the children of Cain, the murderer. For ye all know well what enmity hath existed between us and them since the day whereon he killed Abel. And he blessed his son Mahalaleel, and admonished him in concerning the body of Adam, and said unto him, quote, Behold, O my son Mahalaleel, minister thou before God in purity and holiness in the cave of treasures. And depart not thou from the presence of the body of Adam all the days of thy life, and be thou the governor of the children of thy people, and rule thou them purely and holily. Quote, Canaan died, being 920 years old, on the 13th day of the month of Hezron, which is June, on the 4th day of the week, Wednesday, at midday, in the 65th year of the life of Lamech, the father of Noah. And Mahalaleel his son embalmed him, and buried him in the cave of treasures, and they made him mourning for him 40 days. The role of Mahalaleel. And Mahalaleel rose up and ministered before God in the place of Canaan his father. He was constant in prayer by day and by night, and he urged earnestly the children of his people to observe holiness and purity, and to pray without ceasing. And when Mahalalel had lived 895 years, and the day of his departure drew nigh, and he was sick unto death, and all the patriarchs gathered together and came unto him, Jared his firstborn, and Enoch, and Methuselah, and Lamech, and Noah, they and their wives and their children, and were blessed by him. And he prayed over them and commanded them, saying, quote, I will make you to swear by the holy blood of Abel that not one of you shall go down from this holy mountain. And ye shall not permit any one of your descendants to go down to the plain, to the children of Cain the murderer, for ye all well know what enmity hath existed between us and them from the day whereon he slew Abel. And he blessed Jared his firstborn, and he commanded him concerning the body of Adam, and revealed unto him the place whereto he should make ready to go. And he also commanded him and made him to swear an oath, saying, quote, Thou shalt not depart from the body of our father Adam all the days of thy life, and thou shalt be the governor of the children of thy people, and shalt rule them in chastity and holiness. And Mahalalel died, being 895 years old, on the second day of the month Nisan, which is April, on the first day of the week, Sunday, at the third hour of the day, in the 34th year of the life of Noah. And Jared his firstborn embalmed him, and buried him in the cave of treasures, and the people made a mourning for him 40 days. The rule of Jared. And Jared his son rose up and ministered before God in the cave of treasures. He was a perfect man, and was complete in all the virtues. And he was constant in prayer day and by night. And because of the excellence of his life and conversation, his days were longer than those of all the children of his people. And in the days of Jared, in the 500th year of his life, the children of Seth broke the oaths which their fathers had made them to swear. And they began to go down from that holy mountain to the encampment of iniquity of the children of Cain, the murderer. And in this way the fall of the children of Seth took place. At this time, Satan and 30 of his devils appeared to Jared in the form of handsome men, and called him from the cave of treasures. He came out to them, and thought that they were strangers, and asked them who they were. In answer, Satan told him that he was Adam, and that among his companions were Abel, Seth, Enos, Canaan, and other kinsmen of Jared. He invited Jared to come with him and live with him in the garden which God had given him. And at length Jared was persuaded to leave the cave and go with him. When they arrived at the top of the mountain of the sons of Cain, Satan pretended that he had left a garment for Jared by the cave, and sent one of the devils back to fetch it, telling him at the same time to extinguish the lamp which was burning in the cave near Adam's body. Satan and Jared rested by a fountain, and food was brought out to them by the sons and daughters of Cain, but Jared refused to eat or drink. Satan entreated him to put aside his sadness, and to do as he was going to do. Thereupon Satan and 5 of his devils each seized a woman and committed fornication with her. And on seeing this exhibition of iniquity, Jared bursted into tears, and he began to pray to God to be delivered from that place. When he began to pray, the devils took to flight, and God sent an angel who brought him back to his holy mountain. When he returned to the cave, his people told him that the lamp had been extinguished, and that the bodies of the patriarchs had been scattered about, and that voices had come from them. On entering the cave, a voice came to him from Adam's body, and warned him to beware of Satan and his wiles, and told him to relight the lamp from the fire on the altar at which Adam had ministered. The lamp was relighted at the end of the 450th year of Jared's life. 80 years later, his people began to go down to the children of Cain, and to mingle with their women. And in the 40th year of Jared, the first 1,000 years from Adam to Jared came to an end. So there you go, guys. That is the very first book of the Cave of Treasures. Please click on the link to go to the second book. It gets deeper, it gets a lot more interesting, but even in this first book, I'm sure you've already been, given so much information, and I know it's a lot to take in. And I told you it was going to be deep, but just know that it's going to get a lot deeper and a lot more interesting. So please stay tuned. Thank you for watching.